Good morning and welcome to the third day of our online conference. Today we have with us Mr. Petr Krejčí. Petr has over 20 years of experience in banking and insurance business with the focus on sales and risk management, mitigation of supply chain risks and portfolio management combined with the wide spectrum of compliance risks prevention. He is a true believer in compliance and I am very happy and pleased that he has accepted to participate. Petr, I have seen that you have joined us. Yeah, perfect. Just unmute. Yeah.
Okay. I
hear you well.
You can hear me well. Okay.
Welcome.
Okay. Thank you for inviting me to this session. I hope we have overcome some technical troubles at the beginning. I need to admit I was supposed to show a video which didn't pop up, so forgive me for that. We go straight to the case without a video. And in the first instance, I try to share my screen. I have few slides to show, and then if the technology allows, I would go and show for a live examples I think would be of interest and demonstrate what we are talking about. I also try to take the session a bit from a lighter perspective, look into the history and remind you of a thing which compliance people usually do not think of, but they are absolutely critical to doing what we are supposed to do. So let me try sharing the screen. Okay, share. I will enlarge it, Please confirm that you can see it. And,
yeah, it is perfect.
Perfect.
Thanks.
Thank you. So once more, I'm sorry I couldn't arrive, but the situation around us is not exactly favorable. So maybe next time. What I decided.
All participants are online, so don't worry. You are
okay. Everybody online, but you know, we're missing the people touch, the human touch, and seeing how they react. So that's unfortunately reality.
Just give me a second to announce that this lecture will be recorded, and like all sessions, and will be posted on a dedicated page of the Serbian Banking Association website, and will be published after this event. If our participants are watching the presentation live, which I certainly recommend, I suggest that they can impose the questions through the chat box, Q&A, or they can raise their hands. Okay, thanks.
Okay,
sorry.
thank you. I guess you can send me question anytime. If I can see them on my screen, I will try to answer. I'm used to do
okay,
so.
Perfect.
Do not wait until the end. So building a customer case in compliance, and I have a subtitle a little bit more, and I will come to that later. In the first instance, I'll have a look at it from a broader perspective and try to look shortly in a history, as I like really that things are put into context. And I know that during the 3 days of your conference, we have a lot of data and legal stuff, etc. So I try to enlighten it a little bit and show this can be a bit more fun, maybe. Then I review basics for a customer building case. And definitely would like to draw attention to something which is frequently forgotten, and then if as I said, if technology allows, I will go live. So let's start. This is my favorite kicking point of every presentation for several years. I know anybody can guess what is this? What is this? It's not summer retreat.
Village.
It is, and you might be actually surprised. This is a headquarters of one of the largest Central European developers.
Oh, perfect.
And in the corporate structure, the parent is owned by a company which has a seat. Guess where? Exactly in the same cottage. I just can say that the picture is from Google Maps, based on the register, and it is in New Zealand. So you can sometimes find out interesting places where companies have registered seats for whatever reasons, and from that the links go back to your own country. So this is a multi-billion euro corporation. So no real fun. Until you find it on the Google, you really are surprised. And this was the real case for me. Now let's have just a quick reminder what's the real life for us, what we face. It's basically coming upon us from all angles, and I guess it will never stop. It comes more and more, and obviously with the new regulations coming, we are faced with new attempts to avoid them, blur them, or hide them. So how do we deal with this? Well, before I continue, let's have a very short stop and look into the history. How did we come here actually? Where the compliance starts, or what can be considered under compliance? And I will not go as far as to the history, as we are all part of Austro-Hungarian Empire. I will not go deeper in the history as I could. It's about 1750s when Marie Therese and later her son Joseph II started people census, counting how many people actually do they have in the empire. So the first step, identify how many people I have and who is who. Then and I'm just jumping from various points in the history. In 1875, 77, it's fingerprints. You could definitely identify a first person, and it's so long time ago. Then you have so many bullet points, which I cannot put in. I think the really critical is 1998 FCPA, which allowed US government to prosecute corruption practices of US companies abroad, along with the Bribery Act in the UK, and some more. Obviously, latest regulation, which is a hot topic, is UBOs and their monitoring. There are obviously FATCAs, GATCAs, and some other coming. And I believe that the officials in various countries will not stop putting furthermore regulation onto us. And as I said, we could go thousands years back. Actually, how could I put all the history of developing all these regulations and checking on people and property? It's one sentence. It's basically boils down to who is who and who owns what. And that's basis for compliance till today. It was in the Roman Empire, it was during Austro-Hungarian Empire, it's even today. Who owns who is who and who owns what? I'm sorry for that. So that's the basis. And let's move on to the topic from the perspective. Now, building a case, that's definitely not an easy task, and depends on how broad is scope of your activities and scope of activities of your clients, obviously. There are obviously a lot of events we are concerned, and whatever name there are for it, and in certain periods of time, we focus on different elements. Like there was a period in time, everybody was interested in politically exposed persons. Today, it's UBOs. Some time ago, it's sanctions, and today it's again sanctions. And I think the role of sanctions increased after the Donald Trump became president of the United States, as is especially America, who is throwing sanctions on everybody every second day. So following this is even more critical these days. So what can we do in compliance? We can hardly detect outright fraud, especially if it's internal. Now look at the Wirecard case. Wirecard case started years ago, and as I read yesterday in Financial Times, there were flags from inside the auditor 4 years ago that there is something suspicious in Indian subsidiary of Wirecard. Well, nobody looked at it because Wirecard was a sexy, modern company, with modern technologies, and everybody was excited about that, and thus overlooking all the red flags. And it is actually the red flags we are looking for, and we should ask questions. What can go wrong? We cannot detect what even auditors cannot detect. That's probably not our case. So all this boils down to old-fashioned KYC. Know your customer and ask questions if something from multiple sources doesn't work well. Another bit Later slide, what is the basis for compliance? What you can hear every day, do more, spend less, and don't disturb the business. That's basically everything we hear from the company. Spend less and don't disturb us. And at the same time, however, fulfill the tasks so that we are protected from various regulators, fines, and reputation. So let's have a look at some statistics we have at Bisnode from our clients. Time is money, that holds true. And as per discussion with our clients, you can see that various parts of the compliance process can consume different amount of time. And not surprisingly, the biggest is today, verifying the corporate structure of big companies and who actually owns them, who benefits from them. And that's becoming more and more critical. It's not enough to basically screen the company one-off and again in a year's time, and I'll come to that later. We need to do it continuously. And the more you have to hide, the more you will change the structure. So 400 minutes. 400 minutes, and I do have my own personal experience when a CFO of a large telecom company tried to basically find a corporate structure and he said it took him 2 hours actually after some grilling. So where it all boils down, all these elements boil down. What's the risk? Financial, yes, but I think the biggest risk these days is reputational. Company itself, we are looking at maybe okay, but the related companies, owners, former owners, associates, or business partners on both supply or buy side can raise a huge response and media attention if something goes wrong with them. And then, my question is, who actually wants to be in the press because doing business with somebody or some company which has a problem with whichever crime or wrongdoing, be it child abuse in working or environmental issues, etc. So for me, all boils down with reputational risks, and it obviously has consequences in finance. In penalties, it can also affect lives of the executives traveling to certain restrictions. That's a reality. That's not just a movie where it was Wolf of Wall Street, I guess, when the French banker was detained in Florida. That was real case, and we've had so many cases recently just stopping over in the United States airport resulted in corporate managers being imprisoned because the US government suspected company from something wrong. So, real costs. Where are the hidden costs? It's always the 80-20. I think the real issue for us is doing things manually. And not automating them. Manual work is nice when you're looking for details, but when you have when we want to have a process which is robust, consistent, and obviously recordable, so that we can show it to authorities even a few years after we recorded them, then labor work is difficult. People leave, systems change, and people make mistakes. So I think automation is key to this, and reducing labor work, which is expensive, into individual checks is just the direction we should focus on. Now, what we think at Bisnode is a fair customer process, and at the same time trying to prevent business and actually help making money for the companies. Obviously, first case is identifying the company, which may, or the person, which may not be as easy as because translating from different languages into your own language may differ, etc. So it is not easy to identify companies. Not all the companies in every jurisdiction have a single identifier which can say, yes, this is the company, and even that may not be enough. Verification. Well, yes, that's critical part of the process. We need to have own criteria which tells us automatically it can go on or we should look into this in person and thus spend more time. And that's the part of the process which helps us to actually generate income for the company. Although I admit almost nobody admits that. They all see that we prevent them making money. That this is the critical stuff. Enriching, and I'll come to that because this is the part which is often overlooked and goes hand in hand with the ultimate beneficial ownership. Let me return to this issue a few minutes later. Only after we have all of this, then we can screen, and we should screen one-off with every transaction and obviously continuously, as the fifth AML regulation of the EU asks for. So that's monitoring. And obviously, absolutely critical is ability to demonstrate that we have done at the moment the situation occurred all we could, as we are not police, we are not FBI, whatever bureau, but we should, with reasonable care, show to the regulator and to authorities that we have done most that could have been expected from us at the time. And then excuse me, that actually goes to the recent last 2 weeks, media were overwhelmed with leaks from filings banks sent to their regulators to basically confirm or have them verify whether this is a money laundering case or not. I think Deutsche Bank was actually the biggest one who says the most reports to the regulator. And media obviously were screaming with subtitles, money laundering, banks laundered, etc. And at the end of the day, all of us know that this was just a proper part of the process. And whenever in doubt, and we think we cannot verify further, then we obviously return to our internal regulator in the process, or in the country internal regulator, I mean, to basically ask them for, saying yes or no to the process. So media can twist the information in terrible way, and I think the backlash against the financial institution in last 2 weeks was just enormous, especially in the international press, but at least in the press in the Czech Republic as well. And if I wasn't aware of what was going on, then I would think banks do nothing else than money laundering, day and night. So ability to demonstrate, document is absolutely critical. Now, just a quick reminder of risk data categories. They are expanding. In my opinion, these days they're all critical, but I'm more and more interested in state-owned companies because of the global trade environment. I think the prime example is, again, the US-China relationships. But it could be also European Union, it could be any single country which is concerned about foreign investment into strategic industries. So these days, knowledge of companies which are state-owned or have a relationship with states or governments of other countries might be actually very critical in compliance process and may completely change on our view whether we would finance or otherwise support a transaction. There is one more, and I think that's negative information. That's the bullet on the far right side. Global profiles of companies according to clearly defined regulatory and supply chain related categories. I think this is what can actually prevent us from a lot of reputation risk. If we can compile thousands of media sources, internet, press, TV from the whole world, to see whether there is potential an event, a situation which can influence the business relationship now or in the future, then obviously we should take care about it and we should look into it. The other issues are just standard, sanctions, politically exposed persons, etc. But state-owned companies and adverse media, take it with a grain of salt, obviously, what's in the media, but this is critical from a public reputation perspective, because it can really kill the public interest. The suppliers may stop supplying, the buyers may stop buying, and obviously the consumers are, and especially the younger they are very sensitive these days to dealing with companies which may have in reality or a perceived issues in this area. So that's where we look at. Now 2 more slides about UBO monitoring. That's a 5th AML directive. We all are now required who owns what. It may differ actually from country to country, although the regulation is similar across the EU. But the regulation requires and sets the expectation that we will constantly monitoring UBO. To help us that, obviously, and it is my own experience with regulators in several countries, if we divide or split our customer base into risk layers, risk tiers, risk-based monitoring, that's what I want to say actually, then that basically helps us to save time, to show the regulator I know what I do, and if something goes wrong, then I have a process to remedy it. So there are difficulties, obviously, with the UBO. I think I can skip this one. But this is the example of how difficult it may be to comply with all the regulations. Sometimes we find out that one regulation is actually contradicting the other regulation. And, how to get out of this, how to get out of the situation. If you look at politically exposed persons, I think in Spain, Spain now considers everybody who is elected as a politically exposed person, which is not the exact definition of the EU IML legislation. It's even much stricter. So anybody who is elected to the smallest village is politically exposed persons now follow it and comply with it. So it is not easy, especially if we do business in multiple countries and even multiple continents. That's definitely an issue. So what are the challenges en route to complying with this? What does management requires us to do, and what we want to achieve so that we reduce the risks and keep up competitive going business in this environment? Obviously, and it follows the process I've shown before. Establishing the correct entities to screen and thus reducing the false positives, that's the key. I think implementing a risk-based approach consistently, hearing the customers and doing the checks on a risk-based basis that is very well perceived by the regulator. As much as we can drive the automation, and obviously using expensive resources effectively. We are advised, even by the regulation, to use multiple resources. The more resources we use, obviously, the more time it takes, the more conflicting results we can receive, and the more costly it can be. So this is a rather tricky one. And obviously, keeping up to date with the material changes is rather difficult. I think yesterday it was UK and Canada who imposed sanctions on some Belarusian politicians. The day before, US government announced sanctions about on one of the Chinese companies supplying semiconductors, and it goes day by day. So it's very difficult to keep up to date with material changes manually. So. Shall we buy a software, a deal done?
Everything is perfect. Just information for you, I don't know whether you are informed about that Serbia has introduced a UBO register last year, in 2019.
Oh yes, yes. Thank you for that. I've seen that. I actually, because I do business in the region, I read the Balkan review, or what's the name of the online magazine. So I know that. I've checked the manual. So one thing is whether you put it into the law, and whether this is in reality in place.
Yes, it is in the law and it is in the place. Maybe the quality of data we will see. We have to work closely with the central register of the UBO, but actually it was done in an amazing period of time, in only a few months. So basically, just to inform you that we have introduced it, maybe before, I don't know how many countries. But
well, I can give you. Well, I can give you a quick example from the Czech Republic, where I was part of the parliamentary committee to basically put the European legislation into the local context.
Yeah.
And guess what has happened since the time, because we also have a prime minister who has some issues with his business and the EU. There are, back and forth coming. We still do not have it in place. It's not in the local legislation, so we are actually breaching EU legislation. Now they introduced something over the summer or even during the Corona crisis, so that nobody noticed. That would be actually blur it, so that you would, so it's some cats and dogs sort of, business here, and it's still not valid. It should be with 1st of January, but I think only the first cases will show what happens. It's also different approach in different countries. In some countries, like we have Netherlands or UK, they said, everything will be public. Whereas, for example, Germany said, we need to take account of a certain privacy requirements. So not everybody can access the register, and I think this is the biggest debate. Who can actually review everything? Because then, I can look into my neighbor in a public register and see what he owns, etc. So there's a conflict definitely for me between privacy issues, right to basically have a privacy, and right of the public to know. And finding a balance here is a very difficult, and differs really from country to country.
Yes.
And I guess it may drive more and more companies into different legislations,
We will learn in the future what should be done.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay. So not so fast, I'll show some example, which is a real example, and I always have to ask, are my data in good order? Or do I throw good money after bad money? And that is critical. I mean, compliance products are relatively expensive, and the bigger you are, the more expensive they are. They obviously should prevent you from much bigger cost regarding fines and public reputation, etc. But if I apply specific software and my data are not in good order, then I probably do not spend my money well. I mean, what you can see now on screen is a real example of a big producer and trader in the European Union. I just cannot name it, but it's a real case when we did a sample test on the client's database before we moved further on. So you can see in the first column on the left side, in their own master database, that obviously all clients have a name. That's fantastic. 100% of clients at least have a name. Not all clients already have an address. It's like 70–75%. So 30% resides where? And even less, around 14–15% of those clients in the database have a certain postal code and does have a seat in a certain city. So how do you deal with this? And on top of that, you can see the more, there are a lot of numbers there, but the blue piece of the circle, which tells you 22.9% of the client data were duplicates when we run it through our systems. So 1/3 of the records in the internal database were duplicates. So how can you actually send invoices? How can you contact the customer? How can you run marketing campaigns if they are, if you have 1/3 of the customers duplicates and small numbers with address and postal code? Quite fun. So you think this is a production company and banks are anything different? Well, hold my beer. I was involved last 2 years in unaccredited reporting for several big banks. That's for those who are not involved in that, unaccredited reporting has been introduced by European Central Bank, and they try to avoid overexposure of banks on a cross-border basis in the European Union. Maybe I was not exactly correct by the definition, but that's about the way it is. So the banks have to report a big set of data about the companies. Now, most of the data they have in their system, but the first column actually shows you the data we as Bisnode deal with. And we actually help banks, some banks, to fulfill the reporting requirements. Now, for the Czech Republic, we are not in the European Union, but our central bank decided to adhere to the ECB principles and thus requires the reporting as well, and sends it to EU. What's more interesting into this is that in different countries, they add different data they want to see locally on top of this. And I think even more interesting will be in few years' time, it should concern not only corporate loans, but also individual loans for persons, for people. So that will be even bigger pressure on the systems, because this can be done manually. Now, what I want to say with the column on the left, the yellow or whatever color you can see on our screens, I was actually surprised that after so many years of compliance processes in banks, big international banks, I have seen a large percentage of data missing in their own systems when they basically send us samples for testing. And then you can ask, what was the role of compliance? How come they lend so much money to these entities they even don't know these basic data? And I'm not talking about number of employees. I'm talking about address, about ownership, about sometimes they had difficulties with country of residence. So we were involved in that. So it's not only corporates, it's also banks. So unless we have data in good order, I think it's useless to spend money on compliance, and sooner or later it will blow up back. So and I guarantee you, every IT manager will tell you, I have my data in good order. I've seen a big company in developing industry, which they told me at the beginning, we have 4 databases, and they are absolutely correct. No mistake, hundreds of thousands of records in. Well, then having a coffee with the IT manager outside the meeting, he basically admitted, because she admitted that there may be a huge amount of duplications across the databases, because they were also center for the whole Europe. So it's a lot of mess, and the estimate was shocking. She said would be like 70% of data missing or being duplicated. But at the end, it showed that it was far less. But it was around 30-35%. That's the example before, but that's a different example. But again, this is, I think, the key for the compliance, and pressure from us can actually help to save money for the companies, or indirectly make money. Because then the question comes, can we generate income? Obviously, we do not run a P&L in compliance. I think we are only cost which is just necessary to bear. But both from operational and corporate side, I think it's critical for me as a company or an individual. Better and smoother onboarding process is key for me as a client, being supplier or buyer. If I don't have it, I go next door next time. Quicker time to revenue, that's absolutely critical. I basically spend money and allow my traders to do business or business to do business much faster. That is the edge. So yes, we can make money, and I've seen it before. And if we do it properly and properly put arguments for that, I think we can even touch some of the budgets of sales or marketing or even finance if we properly argue that we put things in good order. And just the example of the IT, if you think you have 1/3 of names wrong or duplications, then think of how much time, how much money it costs to maintain it on servers. How many servers more you need to have or databases to correct it. So having the guts and ability to put a number behind the process can help us to get some of the budgets of other departments, and not only our budget, which is usually small and even getting smaller. We've seen that before. So I'm true believer we can make money albeit indirectly. We will not be praised for that, I guess, unless we say that aloud, that we save that money. But let's try to focus on that part of equation. Better process, quicker time to revenue, and not the one we've seen at the beginning. You know, don't bother the sales and spend less, do more. You know, which is the basics in the business. Now, before I try to switch live, just one enlightening picture. Money laundering can have different meanings in different businesses and legislation. This is one I like, and Rob Holson is the real physical person, and his business is basically to clean and wash coins for the hotel he is working for. So that's basically what can money laundering mean as well. But as we all know, money laundering is probably the biggest offense after the murder. So any small thing we misplace can result in money laundering charges, and they may be far bigger and far harsh than the punishment for the offense itself. So let's try to avoid this. Okay, 11:37. It's already before lunch. I'll just put this is for our colleagues in Bisnode in Serbia, and I can be reached as well. I'm not finished yet. I will now to switch onto live application to show you how we can do the process. If it doesn't go, then
I just want to encourage our participants to impose a question to you if they have some questions in the meantime. Okay.
Yep. You can send them via email. It's also possible. I think I need to do this. Try to register. Okay, so going live, just imagine that you have a person coming to your branch or to a counter and saying, I want to open an account, I want to do this, I want to do that. How do I quickly verify the name? And let's say I only have a surname. Okay, I'll use name Sotnikov and certainly find out why. I just use the name. I will not specify town, state, address, place of birth, etc. This. I'll try to find out what a person in the branch can immediately see at the moment. Now you can see that a lot more. Just putting a name Sotnikov without any closer specification puts me 17 names, or pops out 17 names. Some of them may be the same. It's because it's tagged to different sources and different lists. So this requires actually a person to look into it, or you can basically use a first name, city, address, etc. You can reduce the search. But just what we know, putting a name Sotnikov pops up 17 names. And the system helps me to find out which is probably the one I'm looking for. So let's have a look at this file. I'm sorry, my Cyrillic is already a bit outdated, so I go with this. And let's have a look at Sotnikov. So we can immediately see that this individual appears on the United States Treasury Department's Office of Foreign Assets Control on a FAQ list. There are some other references to that. I can go to direct click and see what's going on. Now I may see, okay, but this is not the person I'm looking for, because I was looking for a person who was potentially accused of cyber attacks against the EU interests. So let's have a look whether we can find something here. Okay, this person is on list of UK Her Majesty Treasury Financial Sanctions list. And if I go down, designated by EU regulation, blah, 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 terrorism, and here you have it. This person this person is on a list because of potential cyber attacks against the interests of the states or European Union itself. So that's basically how I can review the whole history of a person. It's not only that the name is in potential sanctions, it also can show me the negative media. Whether I can believe them or not, that's a different story. But it gives me the picture about the name Sotnikov. And then I can really go and be more precise, first name, second name, date of birth, and to see. And the purpose of me is basically asking the client, hey, I see this. Can you explain that? Is it something which prevents me doing business with you? So that's basically the purpose of doing it. I'll look another name. My notes. Okay, name is Serebryakov. If I put in a name Serebryakov, puts up again 19 names. I do not have them all in it. There are women, there are men. I could again specify it. But on the first instance, I can see, excuse me, Evgeny Mikhailovich Rogachev. Who's that? Again, some sanctions. And source name, publication, publisher, and source websites. We can immediately check that. What helps, we can obviously put it into monitoring, so we can monitor development according to our portfolio rules and be advised that something changes, because people who are on sanctions today may not be tomorrow, and vice versa. So that's why I look for persons. Last person before I go to a Serbian corporate, and that is Osama bin Laden, who we believe is dead. But that's not the reason I am showing this. It's just to show how difficult it may be, and we all know that how difficult it may be to basically identify a physical person. Is he or she the one who shows the ID or not? And depends on various transcriptions from Arabic. In some countries, they do not have passports. So it's quite difficult, and I think this is the element where we cannot completely avoid automation. If somebody asks me, I want to have 100% automation, and that's why I'm showing that, I say this is not possible. I've seen some at the conference prediction. The compliance officers will be redundant in I think 7 to 10 years time. That was about 6 years ago. So in 4 years time, we all should be redundant because all would be done automatically. When I'm saying, hold on, I don't think so. And this is one of the examples where basically machines cannot decide whether the person who showed me the ID is the one I'm dealing with. So I do not think that the compliance business or compliance occupation will be obsolete in a few years' time. I really do not. Now let me screen to something. And it's quite sensitive because I tend to show different companies than those from the company I'm located in to avoid various repercussions or tensions, etc. So I basically decided to review this Novi Sad. I have nothing to do with them. It's just that I found them on the list of 10 biggest companies in your country. And I want to do a quick screening of all stakeholders in the company. Serbia. Let's wait. This goes online, so it may take some time. It will offer me all NIS Novi Sad companies of similar names, if it goes well. Just go through the database with 350 million or so records into 200 countries, so it takes some time. Okay. Doesn't want to fix this. Okay, here we are. And I think I want to look at this one. So it found in total 11 names in the local database. In the global database, 65 names. Let's not spend time on that one. Let's have a look on the one which is called headquarters. The address Národná fronta Novi Sad, let's have a look if, just a quick look, if there may be some issue. It pops up red, so there may be some sanctions or issues related to the company or stakeholders, that may be partners or whoever. It doesn't need to be the company itself. So let's have a look quickly what we can find out on a first glance before deciding whether we want to proceed or not. Again, we go live. Sorry. What this part should help me is first, in the process, identify this is the company I want to look at, and second, verify at least the owners, the stakeholders in the company itself, whether they have record in sanctions list, exposed persons, or some negative media. It takes some more time today. It might be internet on my site, it might be overloaded. We are there. So it's NIS AD Novi Sad, if I'm not mistaken, they deal in oil or in oil products. So correct me if I'm wrong, I think it is. So I can see basic registration information, which helped me to say, yes, this is the company I'm looking at. So let's move on. Let's go to enhanced screening. I can have a look at the principles of the company, the shareholders, or the business itself. Well, I want to see all companies and people around around the structure. That would mean biggest shareholders, managers, and biggest companies in the structure. Let's submit all 19. We found 19 names of subjects of the company. Let's find all 19. It will try to fetch the results and show me whether there are any matches in the database worldwide regarding all the names before I go to corporate structure and the ownership itself. Takes time. We have 20 names in that. Wait 10 more seconds. Here we are. So this is the overview of all the stakeholders regarding Novi Sad, and we can find out that there are some matches in the database. NIS Novi Sad, Gazprom, it's in the structure, and there are some matches on the individuals around the company. We can obviously go through that and check immediately the individual names. Let's have a look at this. Okay, a lot more. I choose a random name. I choose Alexander Krylov. I truly do not know who this is. I'm sorry for that. And we can see that there is some people trafficking, organ trafficking. I don't know what's that. You can basically check that. There's also one element to this that can be a person which has nothing to do directly with the company, but what was close to the company. So again, the person is the person involved is critical in the process, and the system cannot do it. But you can see that anything which goes around can basically give you an idea of what's going on. You can see the ownership structure is a Gazprom, and it's a sanction list for some reasons. Sanctions connect Russia, sanction connect Russia, etc. You can obviously print it, file it, you can monitor it, you can do whatever with this. But at one glance, you check everything which is connected to the corporate you're looking at. That can help you basically give the warning flags. And the question for us as the compliance officers is really, is it relevant? Is it not? Is it something which has to do with the company, or is it just coincidence, a similar name or whatever? But it gives you a good picture of what's going on around the company. Now I can look obviously at the corporate structure. NIS AD Novi Sad, how the corporate structure looks like, and we're looking from Novi Sad below. What the company owns. I can play with that, so that per the companies, per the stakes, etc. But here you can see all the companies which are below the company we are looking at. That also can help us to see whether there are some issues with the other companies, both below the company on the ownership side, above the company, and to avoid the reputational risk. So that's basically what you can do. I think I have a few more minutes. I'll show something else. I'm afraid I cannot show it on the NIS Novi Sad because they have a very small ownership structure. So I use German company Male. And I start from actually Czech Republic. Now I show you the issues of today. That's the beneficial ownership. Okay, how can I quickly review who owns what in this company and is beneficent of the results from the company? Okay, and I'll probably go with the first one. Let's go ownership report. Let's see who owns the company, who is the beneficial owner of the company, and what can I do with that. Okay, let's go directly to ownership. Let's see beneficial ownership information. Switch to that. Okay, I try to enlarge it so that you can see it. Here we have a chart. You can change the chart, etc. But we start with this company, Maleber Ostrov. So it shows beneficial ownership and corporate links which relate to Maleber in Ostrov in the Czech Republic, which goes through the Germany. But first glance, I can see who is the single beneficial owner of proceeds made by Maleber in the Czech Republic, and it's Miss Patricia Zimmerman, who is said to have 11.16% beneficial ownership in this company via Bear Invest and via Maleber and via another company. You can obviously play with that. What's more interesting, you have it in the table as well. You can sort it, play with that. You can see whether this beneficial ownership is direct or indirect, etc. You can export it into Excel. You can export it into your systems. So at the first glance, I fulfill the requirement to see who's the beneficial owner. And Sanja mentioned that you now have a local register of beneficial ownerships. The trick is who is obliged to put the information in the register. And in the Czech Republic, there were no fines. So basically companies either didn't do anything or put the data they just considered,
it is obligation of the official representative of the companies to enter the UBO.
Yes.
And actually there is a penalty, so it could be also criminal offense on the end. I will be happy to share with you the copy of this act.
Well, that's actually nice, because really we experienced that you had a manager of the company, input it into the system as the beneficial owner, and law says, unless if I cannot verify beneficial ownership, yes, then that does the management. But then there is no fine. So guess what a lot of companies do?
We will see in the future. Yeah.
We will see.
Time will show us.
I think they always say, the first court case will tell us how to interpret the law.
Clear.
So you can play with it this way and find out the ownership, because for us it is important not to trust blindly one source. And one client told me, when I have the beneficial ownership register in my country, why I should have another sources to verify that? It's exactly about the verification. It's exactly about the verification, especially in cases you do not have fines or a check on what's going on in the register. Then basically somebody may say, and I'm telling you, US FBI, they will not ask you whether you have signed a certificate of goodwill from client that, I do this, that I am owner, I'm not owner. They will go after hard data, and if they find mistakes, they basically know where to get the money into the state coffer. So it is critical to verify the data I see even in public registers, I must say. Well, okay, I think I have come to an end. It's before the lunch. It was a relatively short time to do a bit deeper analysis, but if you feel you would like to go into much bigger detail in certain companies or industries or clients, then feel free to contact my colleagues in Serbia or myself. We'll be happy to sit down and spend much more time regarding the issues you may face. And regarding the issues we all may face.
If there is a possibility to share with our participants some communication and to provide them to test some in test environment, this application, so it would be or database, it would be fine. You can show them how to do it. Yeah, effectively, there are some software limitations to what we can do, what we cannot do. Before that, we would need to check that. But it is always possible to sit down with client and let them play with it and see the results. It is usually, I warn you, nobody is 100% perfect. And if somebody tells you, I give you 100% and it's automated, run away. It's never true. And I also saw on the sample sent from clients that they obviously send everything they cannot identify on their own. And then they, and that has the consequences. So what I want to say really, if you have a feeling you could automate the process, you could save people's time to basically focus on those 20% which are below the water. That's the key. Unless I have it, I will not support the organization I work with, in a smooth and uninterrupted process. And clients will be pissed off. My managers will be pissed off, and it really ends up in this do more, spend less, and don't bother me. So that's basically the final statement. And thank you for attendance and good appetite if you are heading for lunch. Okay, thank you very much, Peter. I would just like to announce what we are going to have tomorrow, and to provide enough time to our listener actually to see whether they have some question to impose to you. Tomorrow in 11 o'clock, we have a session with the representative of the FIU on usual AML topics. Also, we will have a presentation done by Oracle, Serbia and Montenegro regarding structure of the FATCA reporting. And in the afternoon, in 1 p.m., we have nice panel discussion about video identification and online onboarding with the SECO, Credit Agricole Bank, and Direktna Banka, and the Eurobank as well. So basically, that's it for tomorrow. I really appreciate, I hope so, that you have enjoyed, as I also enjoyed in this presentation. If there is no questions, I have to cross-check whether there is some, because we have 3 different channels possible to impose the question. No, actually, most probably Peter was so good provider of necessary information. And we can close this session. Goodbye. Thank you very much for your participation. Thank you to Peter, which share us with a lot of nice information and kind guidance. Basically, see you tomorrow and enjoy the afternoon as well. Okay, bye.